you do not have to live as a victim to all the negative thoughts in your brain that you have about yourself.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in.
Hey guys, Scott and Vanessa Martindale with Blended Kingdom Family. So glad you are here with us today on the podcast. If you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, subscribe. We love to alert you when new podcasts come out. If you happen to be listening on Audible, that's awesome. But know that the full video format of our podcast is on our YouTube channel. You can go and subscribe, and every single Monday when we drop a new podcast, you'll be alerted. Today, we are so excited to welcome our guest, Kait Warman. It's great to have you with us.
Hey guys, I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun. I love your setup, by the way. It's really beautiful and really professional. It's amazing.
Awesome.
That's the goal right here.
Yeah.
Well, we love your setup too. I love it. I love all just the girl in the background. Scott has his own wall for podcasting and I have mine. So I'm like, this has given me inspiration. Change mine up a little bit.
Well, thanks, Vanessa.
You're welcome. Well, we just want to share a little bit about you, Kait, to our audience. So for those who don't know Kait, you guys, she is awesome. We just love following her and all just of the amazing content that she puts out. You know, she is a speaker, a popular relationship coach, and founder and podcast host of Heart of Dating. Y'all, it's a huge, huge podcast. And if you're not subscribed, I just want to encourage you, go do it right now. Through her ministry, Kait's heart is to empower both men and women to have the courage to own their story, walk in victory, thrive with purpose, and discover clarity and vision in their life and relationships. I just love that. She is the author of the new book, Thank You for Rejecting Me, Transform Pain into Purpose and Learn to Fight for Yourself. And Scott and I, we love that title. Thank you for rejecting me. She currently lives in the Los Angeles area and loves sunshine, walks, and Jesus. So Kait, just welcome. We are just so honored and humbled to have you here with us today.
Thank you, guys. I'm elated. This is going to be so much fun. I love your ministry, and we have a lot of people in our community that need the things that you guys are putting out there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, Kait, beyond that introduction, we want to give you an opportunity. Anything else you'd love to share with the audience about you, your background, your hobbies, what you enjoy doing, what makes you you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, the first thing I'll say, just like, I want to admit the fact that I am a dating coach. I wrote a book about rejection, and yet I'm still unmarried. So what I love to say to people is that I'm really in the boat with any other single person watching this or listening to this right now. And so, and it's totally fine that pastors at church give advice on dating, even though they haven't been on the dating scene in like 20 years. They've never had to do online dating or any of those things. But I love that I get to actually walk it out with my fellow single brothers and sisters. And I'm here to say I don't have it all together, but I love being on the journey with people. And there are certainly a lot of things that God has done in my life, a lot of things that God has healed in my life, a lot of things God has shown me in the area of dating. And so I get so much joy, and it's such a privilege and honor, honestly, to be able to share the things that I have learned, that God wants to use me in that way. So it's really exciting, and I love what I get to do. And then behind the scenes, outside of just like talking about dating, which I love doing, you'll find me at Disneyland. I am in Southern California, and I'm a Disney obsessed person, and I'm not afraid to share it. Like, honestly, you guys, I said this recently, but honestly, if I wasn't in a dating coach, I probably would be a Disney blogger because I love it so much. And I would just be that person that posts about Disney all the time. So I have a Disney pass, and it's so much fun. I also originally, this is just a fun fact, I'm from Canada originally, and not a lot of people know that about me. And I'm wildly obsessed with Celine Dion. I just think she is the best musician of all time. And honestly, it's a deal breaker for me in dating. Like, if the person cannot get down with my love for Celine. They don't have to love her the same that I do, but I'm like, you got to at least respect the Celine, you got to respect her voice. It's a really good voice. So those are just some fun things about me.
I love it. And I can totally see you being like a Disney character. Oh my gosh, because you're just so happy and joyful and just bubbly. I love it. And I love the Celine Dion thing. And I have to agree. I mean, there are some people who have like laid out,
I'm just curious, like,
foundation.
in your dating experience, I mean, is that like the first question or second question? You're like, so how obsessed are you with Celine Dion? Because I need to make sure that we're matching energy here.
Honestly, it's not brought up right away, but I will bring it up just casually, being like, so what do you think about Celine Dion? It's kind of like a test, because if they're like, she sucks, I'm like, sorry, I can't do it, like I have had that happen where I'm like, whoopsie, you didn't know what you were walking into there, but I am obsessed. Okay. Yeah. I love her. And we can blame it on my parents and blame it in the, in the 90s. I listened to her all the time. She was really hot in the 90s, and so I was just always in my mom's car in the backseat listening to Celine, and I grew up with it, and now I'm like literally love her. But yeah, and the guy doesn't have to be obsessed. He just has to be okay with me listening to Celine and not make fun of her, or my obsession. That's all.
That's so funny. I love that.
I am with it. Well, you wrote an amazing book and you came up with a cool title that I think a lot of people will find humor in.
Well, and
because they'll resonate with it because when I see the title, I think, one of the thoughts that we had, or that I had when we were first getting to know you, was somebody told me this comment a long time ago. They said, every one of your relationships except one will fail. And they were kind of referring to the concept of every dating relationship you have will fail ultimately except one, which is optimal in terms of, finding that one you're going to marry. So being rejected is kind of part of the process of finding your spouse. And you have taken it and said, thank you for that, because we're going to dive into your heart behind writing it.
Yeah.
But I think it looks like that transformation of yourself into the person that God's created you to be. But I wanted to know from your side, what was your heart for writing the book? And tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. I always joke at the beginning saying, like, you don't just wake up one day and you're like, yeah, like, I want to write a book on rejection. That sounds like a lot of fun, because that's not what happened. It was really God. It's hard. First of all, the topic of rejection is hard. It brings up so much. And that book is filled with tons and tons of stories of really hard and painful moments throughout my life that span from childhood up until just a few years ago, or even recently. And so you don't just wake up one day and are like, yeah, rejection, let's do it. But really for me, it was God moving through my life personally through many years of showing me how he wanted to show up for me in the area of rejection, even in the times earlier in my life when I didn't see that he was there or showing up. Like, he always was there and always used that rejection in some capacity to grow me, to shape me, to move me and redirect me to something different or to something better. And so it's really personal, that's why I wrote this book, because it's a personal thing that I stand for so much. Also, you guys, I've been through so many rejections in life with friendships, work, and boys and men, that a lot of times after those rejections, I looked for resources that could help me, especially godly resources, Christian resources. And there just weren't a lot of things that talked about rejection specifically, which is something all of us go through. And I'm like, I need some help here, y'all. Who's going to write a book on rejection? So that's another reason. And then the last thing here is I have done a lot of one-on-one date coaching. And when I date coach people, I'm not just trying to be the female version of Will Smith in the movie Hitch, right? Which a lot of people are just looking for me to be. They're like, okay, Kait, set me up with the guy or set me up with the girl of my dreams. And I'm like, wait a second. We don't just go straight into that. I think the really big, important part of relationship coaching is looking at a lot of the relationships we have in our life. The first one being with God. So we have to analyze, what is your relationship with God? If you are single and you are single later in life, what are some of the belief systems that you have about yourself or about God in that journey of singleness and still being single? Or maybe you're divorced, or maybe you've been brokenhearted time time and time and again. And maybe you have this disjointed view of God's goodness and God's faithfulness for you. And so that is something we have to address before we go into the date coaching, right? Or to the dating part of date coaching. The other thing we have to address as well is your relationship with yourself. What are the thoughts you have about yourself? How are you showing up in dating? Do you actually have confidence? Do you actually love and care about yourself? Do you see yourself the way that God sees you? Because those things also need to be addressed before we hop into dating. And what I so often found in my date coaching is we would spend so much time in the beginning, most of my clients, just focusing on your relationship with God and your relationship with yourself. And we spent so many sessions doing that before we ever got to the relationship with others, which includes dating, obviously. And in that relationship with God, in that relationship with self was so much, I found so much brokenness with rejection, brokenness with abandonment, fear of rejection, and fear of God, basically not in a healthy way, but fear that God is never going to provide, thinking that God is not an abundant God. And so that's where we spent the majority of my time. And I just said, wow, I'm coaching so many people against their the things they believe about themselves and with their relationship with past rejections that's impacting how they're showing up today. And so we can't even talk about dating, even though I love talking about getting into dating and how to date again. But we need to first address our relationship with rejection and inadvertently how we see God and how we see ourselves through all of that.
No, I love, oh my gosh, I just love everything you said. And, it's so true because I think even our past relationships, whether it's like a mother wound, a father wound, those things. So the people that we come into contact with in our life, whether it's family, friends, like you said, work, different relationships, they can all impact us in a negative way and in a positive way. And then ultimately, what we do sometimes is those things that we believe about those people, we can often place on the Father and think like, okay, this person rejected me, like, God, you're rejecting me, or, but it's not even that, and he's not doing that because he's a loving Father, he's a gracious Father, but because we've experienced that rejection, sometimes we can come into agreement with a lie from the enemy, and then we carry that with us. And I love that you talk about, walking through healing, forgiveness, into a season of wholeness, really, in your singleness before, stepping into something else. Because if we don't do that, then we're just taking all that, Scott refers to it as the U-Haul or the luggage, into the next relationship. The baggage, yes. And then before you know it, you're in this new relationship, and because you have not dealt with the things of the past, that's now affecting you in this future relationship. So I love that you talk about that, and that's even just your process. I think that is so, it's just healthy.
Well, and the one thing that sticks out to me, Kait, in what you said is, I think a lot of people who experience rejection automatically, and again, depending upon their depth of relationship with the Father, or maybe what they've been taught, is they put this as a punitive action from the Father. They said, because I'm rejected, you've rejected me. What have I done? Right. What have I done to make you mad? To be rejected, so that I could feel rejected. And that's not the way God works. He's not a punitive Father. But a lot of people put that label on, and then they carry the label forward. And it affects every relationship they have moving forward. When they can't accept that love, it's impossible to accept the human love because we just don't have a compass for that. So I want to kind of move, and you kind of hinted to this before in terms of how you advise, and I'm saying this all knowing that most people who watch our podcast they might already be married, and they may, or they could be single moms or single dads in that season where they know they're going to be a blended family. Yeah. So I'm really hoping to touch those people today. But what would you say to individuals who have experienced rejection or experienced divorce and began dating in what we call a very superficial culture that is very technology based? And what practical and spiritual advice would you give them today?
Yeah. The first thing is we have to reconcile our stories, and so if you've been through any sort of trauma or brokenness, and a divorce is a trauma, that's a big trauma. It's on the scale of traumas, it's actually a pretty big one. It really shakes up your life, and it can really have the potential to also shake up the way you view yourself and the way you view, if you're a woman, the way you view men, and also it could shake up the way you view God in ways, right? There's not many people I meet that have been through a divorce that is like, that was the easiest thing I've ever been through. Most people, their response is that was really, really painful, really, really difficult. And whether you're listening to this and you've been divorced, or you've been through a really bad heartbreak, or maybe you lost your significant other, whatever it looks like, I think the first part of this is to reckon with our stories. And, part of that is just journaling it out and processing it with the Lord, processing it with potentially a therapist, because I'm all about therapy over here. And, we have to be able to reckon with our stories, like write it all down and process it out. I think it's so good because we have all these things going on in our heads, and people talk a lot about journaling today, but I just so believe it. Like I will never get off the journaling train. I think it is so helpful for our brains to get our pen to paper and actually write it down, like start processing through my story, what happened, like write it all down, no filter, right? Just write it down. And then as you write the story down, and I was time to reckon with it. So these are the moments where you can kind of see, instead of putting, a lot of times we have moments like this, moments of trauma, and we like to put a lot of shame on ourselves and or the other person. And so what I'd like to empower people to do is to notice the moments of gold within your story and to say, wow, where were the moments where I was doing the best that I can? Where were the moments where I actually did really well in that moment? And I'm proud of myself here. I'm really strong to have been able to go through something like this. Because here's why I'm saying all this. When a lot of times when I coach single parents or people have been through a divorce, a lot of them have a really poor view of themselves. They feel like they're broken goods. They feel like, look what I've done to get here. And, it didn't work for me. And therefore nobody's going to really want to be with me because this is my story. And I want to help people rewrite that narrative to say, you know what, this is your story. And there's a reason that this is your story. God is moving through this. And even if you don't understand all the reasons right now, through time, you will understand more, and you may not understand the full reasons for why. We spend a lot of our life just looking for why, and we don't know all the reasons to why. We can get lost in that, but he will continue to show you through time if you allow him to, and you press into it consistently, where he's taking you and how wonderful and beautiful and strong you are as a human being. And so I think we need to reckon with our stories first and foremost, and, start removing the layers of shame that we believe about ourselves, which may lead to lies of unworthiness, lies of not enoughness, and all of that. And so it's really important that we reckon with our stories and then pick up on the lies that we're believing and break down some of that shame, because you need to be able to say to yourself, you know what, this is my story. I've reckoned through it. I've healed through it. And I am proud of the person that I am today. If you can honestly say that, you can walk into dating with so much confidence, and you can know whether or not, like, if somebody is fazed by your past, if you're a divorced person, if somebody is fazed by that, they're probably not for you. Okay. And they've got their own issues if that's such a big deal to them, because that is not the way God sees you. And so they got to work through their own stuff if it's such a problem for them. You know what I mean? And so if you can walk into dating, honestly, reckoning through your story, working through the lies of shame, unworthiness, fear comes up a lot, fear of abandonment, fear of this not working out again, working through some of those things. And then what I love to encourage people to do before you get out there and date, this is so important. And I do this with people who also haven't been divorced, because I think no matter what your story is, if you have trauma there and you haven't dealt with it, truly, you're going to have lies that you believe about yourself. You're going to feel insecure. You're going to feel like you're not worthy. And so I always say, we come to dating a lot of times with like this list of things that we're looking for. But my favorite thing to do is to say, I want you to write a list of the things that you bring to a relationship. I want you to write a list of the things that you are amazing about you, that you bring to people's lives. And I write about this actually in chapter 4 of my book. That chapter is called Sorry, Not Sorry. And this is just about not apologizing for the amazing person that God has created you to be, no matter who accepts you or who rejects you. Like that book is specific, or that chapter is specifically about bullying and friendship, but it can apply to so many different areas of your life. And so Sorry, Not Sorry is about just accepting there are amazing things that make me who I am, that God has crafted me very uniquely. And part of that is some of my story, some of my story, which has made me into the person that I am today. And so when you write this list, what is a lot of people that I coach have a hard time writing this list. They're like, oh my goodness, well, I don't know. I feel kind of weird writing these things down, or I can't come up with 10 things. And so if you have trouble doing that, then go ahead and ask one of your closest friends or a family member that knows you super well. And you just go to them and you say, hey, I'm working on this exercise and I would just love to know like why you're friends with me. Like, what do I bring to your life? I'm trying to figure this out, because our friends, especially family, a little bit different. We're connected by blood and, we're going to be there till the end. Right. But with friends, they have a choice to be in your life or not. So if somebody is a really close friend of yours, go ahead and ask them, why are you friends with me? What do I bring to your life? I'm just so curious. I'm working on this exercise. And, it's so beautiful to have that reflected back to you. Your friend is going to say something like, well, if it was my friend, they might say to me, Kait, you have so much empathy and you never make me feel judged for my feelings or for what I'm going through. And I always feel like I can just come to you judgment free and share with you about what I'm going through. And it makes me feel so safe. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I have the gift of empathy. That feels so awesome. Like that's something that is valuable in my life that I can bring to a relationship. Right. Yeah. And so then I ask them to continue or ask a few friends. But this is so important because as you go back out into dating is always going to bring up something. It's going to bring up some lies of something. Usually it does. It just some things pop up, right? It's just, you think you've worked on everything and then you start dating. You're like, oh, where'd that come from? I've been good in my single life. Right. And so the more and more you can practice, processing this list, praying through this list, sealing this list into your mind, I'm not talking about being prideful, saying to yourself, I am better than everyone in the entire world, but I am talking about having a level of godly confidence, like knowing who God has created you to be, knowing that your story is a part of that journey and being confident in what you have to offer in your future. And I say this to people, I deal with a lot of singles that are not divorced as well. And I say to the people who are hesitant about dating somebody who's been divorced, I say, what if that's a person who has learned through their relationship, through their marriage, and they are potentially more qualified and more eligible than somebody who's never really understood what it's like to be married. I was like, if they've really dealt with it and they've healed through their process, that is like the golden person right there, because that person understands what marriage is like. That person understands the sacrifice. That person understands communication, how to fight, how to have disagreements and all of that. And I'm like, if they've dealt with it, if they've healed and they've really gone through that process, then that could be like, that's the ultimate eligible person over there, and I'm like, that's what people don't think of sometimes though. But if you're a divorced person listening to this, I just think that's the way you can see yourself. If you move through and heal through some of your things, then you actually have a leg up because you actually know what it's like to be in a relationship, go through the depths of, challenging arguments and communication and sacrifice and all of those things. And so I think you actually have a lot to be proud of for your story and for where God has you today.
No, I love that. And I love, you just talk about it being a process, Kait. And somebody explained this to me one time and I love it. And it's talking about like when you've experienced brokenness or heartache or rejection or whatever that is, they talk about like when you're going through healing and through freedom and, coming out of agreement with lies or strongholds, it's like peeling back an onion. But she was like, think of it this way. If there's a mountain and you're circling the mountain and you're going higher and higher. And so you start at one point and then you come around and you get to that point, but you're a little bit more elevated above. So you're revisiting that pain, but you have a greater scope of, okay, God, like we worked through this layer. now we're on this layer. And then you're circling around that, everything's good, but he brings you back to that. And so it's a continuous process, but I love what you're talking about is that absolutely God, someone once said that our story is, or what is it? It's his history. So our history is his story, History. And
Wow.
and he's just
That's good.
And he's continuing to write that. No matter what you've gone through, we don't have to walk with that shame. We don't have to walk with the rejection or the things of the past. And like you said, just working through all of that, and being proud and just being confident of, like, this may not have turned out the way that I thought it was going to turn out, but God can, take what was broken, make it into something beautiful, use it for my good and for his glory.
Well,
Yes, so true.
I think the part of it that is difficult, for a lot of people to see is, we are fighting strongholds. We are fighting battles every single day for generational success in raising Christian children and raising and having Christian marriages. I mean, these are generational struggles, and a lot of people don't take the opportunity to go back and revisit and heal. They just continue. It's like driving a car with a flat tire all the time. That's just the way people have been conditioned to go. So I love that we're bringing light to this. Your book, whether you are listening to this and you're married and maybe you're still feeling some of that pain, this book is not just for single people. This book is for people who want to be healed and who want to find healing.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to do that. We're coming to our last couple of questions, Kait. So the first one is, if you had somebody who was right in front of you, and maybe they're single, or maybe they're newly married, but they haven't quite healed yet, what, small piece of advice would you impart to them? What would you give them?
Yeah, I would just say the first thing, because what I just hear a lot of people doing is they like to live in almost the victim mindset. And I hate to just go straight into it, but there's a lot of what I call in the book victim belief system. And it's like, I'm never going to get better. I've lived this far in my life, and this is just how it is. God isn't good to me, or God, it'll never get better, or I got in this marriage and I'm just this way. And, the first step you have to do is to understand and know that God made you a powerful person, and that you can take part in the action and change that's needed for your life. And so you do not have to live as a victim to all of the negative thoughts in your brain that you have about yourself. No matter what your history is and how bad your trauma may be from your childhood into adulthood, whenever it all happened, or if it consistently happened, you don't have to live as a victim to all that has happened to you. And so whether you're single, whether you're married, like a lot of people don't fix this stuff, like you just said, Scott, until they're married. I just talked to one of my best friends actually recently, and she was like, man, I love my husband. And I walked them through their whole journey. This is way long ago, but they didn't start dealing with her trauma truly until 5 years into marriage. And then they realized it was like, enough is enough. You keep treating me this way. Everything keeps coming up, and you're basically putting it all on me. And it was this beautiful moment though, where he had a, breaking point, but it also encouraged her to have her breaking point, that she no longer had to be a victim to all of the horrible things that had happened to her in the past, all of the horrible men that she had dated. She kept projecting that onto her husband. And so no matter if you are single and going through that in dating, or if you're married and going through that right now, you could be a woman, you could be a guy listening. That could also be your story. You don't have to be a victim to the things that have happened to you anymore. And so I want to first emphasize that there's so much compassion and grace, and that you also need to have that same amount of compassion and grace for yourself for the things that happened to you. So many of those things were also not your fault. A lot of those things just happened to you, and if you feel shame for the way you partook or some of your actions within those situations, like, man, God wants to meet you where you are and cover you with so much love and grace and mercy and forgiveness for those times in your life. And so whatever we are living with, a lot of times, you said it, Scott, we're living with like a broken tire, or a flat tire. I see it as like we're living when we are born. I write about this in chapter 2. We're like this innocence, purity. We're beautiful children with just like this light to see the world. And then as the years go on, things start piling up on top of us, and maybe little thing after little thing after little thing. It may be a big thing. It doesn't even, if you're looking at your life and you're saying, well, Kait, I'm not a person with all these big traumas. It could be little traumas, little moments of lies, little moments of things that have happened that have built up over time that eventually cover the person, the beauty, the innocence that you have at the core of who you are. But the best part of that is that that part of you has never gone away. That part of you is still within you. That is who God has created you to be. And it's never too late to go through the layers, as painful as it may be. It's never too late. You are a powerful person. You can do this. You are a strong person. It's never too late to start going through those layers and reconnect and get back to the person that God has so beautifully crafted you to be. And so that's kind of like my charge of empowerment, that you can do this. And it reminds me of John 5 when Jesus meets the paralytic man at the pool of Bethesda. I love bringing up this story, but this man was sitting there for 38 years, completely lame. He was just at the side of the pool, and every year the water swelled and he had the opportunity to be healed, but instead he was just laying there. He's just like, will anyone help me in? Like he's a victim to his circumstances, until Jesus was there and he said, well, do you want to be healed? And instead of saying, yes, oh my gosh, I want to be healed, his first reaction was an excuse, a complaint, like, oh, I haven't been healed because nobody's helped me all these years, right? And so Jesus is like, pick up your mat and walk. That's his response. And I love it. Jesus isn't like, here, let me take your hand and lift you up. He really challenges this man, like, you can pick up your mat and walk. You can do this. Like, you can make it happen, right? And so we have to get to that moment where we're like, yes, heck no, I don't want to be a victim to all these things, these beliefs about myself, the lies, the traumas. I want to take a step to partake in my healing journey. No matter where you are, no matter what age you are, it's never too late. I hear a lot of people, it wasn't the generation, my parents' generation, the baby boomers, it wasn't that generation's it wasn't of the time to go to therapy and get a lot of healing for your past. You kind of just grin and bared it. You were just like, well, get on with your life. Like, all right, that happened. Keep going. And now we see a lot of people older who are still like, we are in a new cultural moment where healing and therapy, and it's all way more normal today. But you see people who are older who are like hesitant, or who are like, oh, but that doesn't like match with how I was raised and all the learnings of my mind, which said that would be weak to go to get therapy. That would be weak to get healing. Yeah. And so I just think that we can break some of these ties by saying it's never too late. I don't care if you're listening to this, you're 40, 50, 60, it doesn't matter your age. It's never too late to have that heck no moment and say, I can take back some of the power of my life and work through these traumas, go through these layers and get back to freedom, to be free of the things that are on my back that have piled over and over and over the years. Good. It's never too late to be free. But also the caveat is nobody can make you do it. You have to be the one to want the change. Like even God himself isn't going to just be like, I'm going to take every single thing that you've ever been through in your life and take it away. Like he wants you to actively participate in the journey, to pick up your mat and walk. And man, I just went on a whole TED talk here, but I just feel so passionately about this because I have so much compassion for the pain people have been through. And I want to empower them as well, that like, it's never too late, no matter where you are, to start unpacking these layers.
Yeah. That is so good. I just want to be like, whoosh.
Yeah, it's good.
So powerful, Kait. Yes.
Well, you're speaking to the majority of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it doesn't really matter, how long it takes. You got to keep talking to them. So I love that. Last question, Kait. The name of our ministry, Blended Kingdom Families. We ask this of all of our guests. What is a blended kingdom family to you?
I love this question. So obviously I've never been, well, not obviously, but I don't have a blended family. But I know a lot of blended families, and I've spoken to a lot of people. And I think the beauty of a blended family is what a blended kingdom family is to me is is I picture just this beautiful mosaic that God has blended perfectly together, almost like the stained glass windows you see at old cathedrals, and like different colors. And it's so unique, but together with all the different colors blended together, it like births something so beautiful. So if you in a blended family can see all the unique parts of the different children, of every single person that is a part of that blended family, if you can learn to appreciate who they are and the gifts that they have to bring to this family, like there is such power and beauty in that. If you can picture it that way, if you can each, like everybody doing their part to really see one another for the beautiful ways that God has created them, and not try to change them to like fit them into your mold of how you want to do things or how it is for you, but to really just honor the beauty that God has so uniquely crafted in each one of you. And that's what I picture it as. Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that. That's beautiful. Beautiful mosaic. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kait, we have just absolutely just loved having you on the podcast today. And thank you so much for just taking your time and sharing your heart for the book and just your wisdom and knowledge. And I know that there's so many people, whether they're single, beginning to blend, engaged, and married, I know they're going to glean so much from this. So we just want to say thank you so much. And tell our audience where they can find you.
Yeah, totally. Thank you guys. This has been so fun. I loved it. And if anyone wants to get connected, or if you are single and you have been through divorce, you're single later in life, like we have a huge community of thousands of men and women that are single, that are of varying ages. It would be a great opportunity for you to meet some other amazing Christian singles if you're looking to date. But other than that, if you just want community, if you feel like I'm the only one in this and nobody knows what I'm going through, our community is here to be here to basically welcome you in. You can find us at heartofdating.com, and there's a page for community where you can figure out how to get all connected into our Facebook group, into Instagram, into our events, which we do a few times a year. We do different conferences, and we have events just all the time. And it's kind of become this like Heart of Dating family, which I love because people are walking on the journey of dating together. So go over to heartofdating.com, and then you can find all the ways to connect.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll love that. Well, thank you so much again, Kait. And, we're just so excited for you and just appreciate your obedience to what you're doing to help impact the kingdom and people in their journey with dating and relationships. So it's so awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining in today with our podcast. Again, if you haven't already, please take an opportunity to like, share, subscribe. We're so thankful that you were here with us today. We hope you've enjoyed it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do today.
Take care.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.